Hey boys and girls, welcome to my online classroom. I know this is a new experience for you. It's a new experience for me too, and I think we're gonna make it through. But I wanted to pick up where we left off in our classroom. So when we were in the art room, we were talking about a paper airplane challenge, and we learned all about the different aspects of designing and modeling with paper airplanes. And I gave you a challenge. I challenged you as a class to make a group of paper airplanes that in total, when you combined the distances that they flew, could fly over 200 feet. But we're gonna modify that challenge and we're gonna keep on going with our paper airplane challenge. So the new challenge to you is at home for you to create a paper airplane that can fly farther than 10 feet. And I want to review some of the things that we were learning in the classroom before we get started, and I show you how to make this Guinness World Record paper airplane design that we talked about. We talked a little bit about designers and engineers and how they go about making things and inventing, and they go through this design process where they test things, they make mistakes, they fix their mistakes, and then they try again. And they do this using models, and that's kind of like what we're doing. Models are usually smaller versions of a final project made with less expensive materials. And we talked a little bit about how, what might happen if a designer had to make an airplane and they were building their models using the real expensive materials and to the full size, how wasteful that would be. So it's much smarter for us as designers and artists and engineers to create models using less expensive materials and on a smaller scale. And our airplanes, our paper airplanes, are models that we can test, we can modify our design, we can change it, and then we can test it again to try to meet our challenge. We talked a little bit about two-dimensional and three-dimensional, or 2D and 3D. Two-dimensional objects such as drawings, paintings, artworks on paper are flat, and they have two measurements. The first measurement is height, right, how tall it is, and width, how wide it is. 3D objects or three-dimensional objects such as sculpture or statue in artwork, they are forms and they have three measurements. The three measurements that a 3D object has are height, how tall it is, width, how wide it is, and depth, how deep it is from front to back. So if you're looking at my ukulele, if you were looking at my 3D object, this ukulele, you could say that it has three dimensions, right? It's got height, how tall it is. It has width, how wide it is from side to side. And it has depth, how far the distance is between the front and the back, right? And a cool thing about 3D objects or 3D artwork is they look different depending on where you're standing and looking at them. So my ukulele looks like this from the front, it looks like this from the side, and it looks like this from the back, right? So 3D objects have that characteristic where 2D objects don't. They're flat, right? Drawings and paintings are flat. They generally look the same from all angles. Some examples of some 3D shapes or 3D forms that you might know from your classroom. Or this one, right? This is a cube. This actually is a cube of clay. It's pretty heavy. We're all getting pretty familiar with paper towels and toilet paper. These are cylinders. Hopefully you're not running out. And our Earth, right, or a ball, is a sphere, right? This is a 3D shape. So before we get started on our world record Guinness paper airplane design, I also wanted to review really quickly the forces that we talked about that are affecting our airplane. We talked about several of them. The one that pushes down on our airplane, gravity. The one that helps our airplane go up or stay going straight, which is lift. We talked about air pressure and wind resistance, right? What our airplane has to be aerodynamic and has to have the ability to cut through the air, not just smack into it like a brick wall. And we also have the force of thrust, right? That makes our airplane go forward. And in our paper airplane models, our muscles provide the thrust when we throw it. In a real airplane, it might be a jet engine or a propeller engine that's going to give that airplane thrust. But for us, it's going to be our muscles. All right. Let's get started on making our paper airplane design, and I'll see you next week. Okay, here we go. The world record setting paper airplane. Now I'm starting with this piece of graph paper, but you can use a regular piece of printer paper, copy paper. Right? And you can, any 8.5 by 11 size piece of paper will do. So the first fold that we're going to be doing on our 8.5 by 11 piece of paper is called a mountain fold, and I've showed you this fold before in a couple different ways, but basically what you're going to do first is bring this side over to this side and line those edges up carefully. I want to get my corners lined up and my edge lined up, and I hold it in place with my non-folding hand. Now I can take my other hand and slide across to make that crease. Now I want to make my crease nice and sharp. I'm going to use my pen without the pen sticking out, but you can use any hard object as long as it's smooth and it's not going to make a mark on your paper. I'm just going to slide that object along my crease to make that crease nice and sharp. If you don't have an object to use, you could always use your fingernail, and you can slide that fingernail along that crease to make it nice and sharp. The key to making a really great paper airplane is nice sharp creases. So now I'm going to open up that fold and smooth it out a little bit. And the next fold I'm going to do is kind of like a kite fold. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be bringing this corner all the way down to here. So I grab that corner and I roll it down all the way down to this side. And the key here is lining up this edge with this edge of the paper. So I'm lining those edges up all the way up to the point. I want my folds to be lined up really carefully. So I've got it lined up. I can hold it in place again with my non-folding hand and slide that folding hand away to make the crease. Now I'm going to make that crease nice and sharp. Now I can open that fold up, and I'm going to do the same thing, but now I'm going to do it in this direction. So I'm going to bring this corner down to this side. And now we've got a little guide crease. That little crease right there is going to guide us where to go. So I can bring my corner down to the end of that crease. Make sure that my edge is lined up. Once I've got it lined up, I can slide my non-folding hand away and make that crease nice and sharp. Now, if you get hung up, if you're having any trouble, you can always pause, you can rewind, you can go back, you can go forward as many times as you want. I'm going to open that fold up, and I should have one crease going down the center, and then an X across sort of the top half of my paper. Now I'm going to do another kite fold. In this kite fold, I'm going to bring this corner and this edge to this crease. Watch carefully. I bring that corner down and I'm lining this edge up with that crease right there. Once I've got that edge lined up with that crease really carefully all the way down to this point, I'll hold it in place and smooth it out to make that crease. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to bring this corner and this edge into that crease right there. So I fold that corner in and down, and I line this edge up with that crease. Once I've got it lined up all the way down, I can press that fold flat. Again, the key to making a really great paper airplane is nice sharp creases and carefully lining up your folds. Now I've got to bring this end down to about the middle. So I'm going to roll it down, and we have some little guidelines here. Now, I don't know if you can see it at home on my paper. If I hold my paper a little closer, you might be able to see it. There's these little fold lines right here and right here. And there's a point at which all the folds meet. That's where I'm going to make my crease, and I want to make sure that this crease lines up with this line right here, and this crease lines up with this line right here. So once I have all of those things lined up really carefully, and my center line all the way down, then I can press my fold flat and make my crease nice and sharp. Now I'm ready to bring these corners in. I'm going to bring this corner and this edge down into that center line, and I'm going to fold it right over this line that starts here and goes all the way down. So I'm going to fold it over that line and bring this edge and this point into that center line. Once I have it there, I'm going to press that fold flat and do the same thing on the other side. Bring this point and this edge into the center line. Just like that. Press that fold flat. We're getting closer. Now you should have this flap right in the middle. We're going to use that flap to hold everything in tight. It's going to work for us. And we're going to fold it right where these two lines meet. So this line and this line, they meet right there. This line and this line meet right there. I'm just going to fold that flap up right over that line. All right, now I can pick the whole thing up, and I'm going to fold it over the center line toward the back. Fold it right in half toward the back. Again, make that crease as sharp as you can. Now I can turn my plane, and I'm ready to make those wings that are going to give our plane some lift. So what I want to do now is I want to bring this corner and this edge down. I'm going to fold them over. So I'm placing my thumbs on that little tab that we just made, and I'm grabbing this top edge and folding it over. Now to give it the most lift, right? You might have something that looks like that, and you've got this little corner poking out. To give it the most lift, you're going to make it so that that corner just barely disappears. So I've got it like this. I'm pulling it down until that corner just barely disappears. Once it's gone, I'm going to press that fold flat and make my nice sharp crease. And I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. I put my thumbs on my tab, I grab my top flap, fold it over, and now I'm just going to line it up with that wing in the back that I folded. I'm going to just cover up that little corner. Now, if your folds aren't perfect, that's okay. This is probably your first time doing a world record paper airplane design. And it takes practice. Making mistakes is okay. Having to try again is okay. That's a good thing to do. It's just practice getting your folds right. It's not going to be perfect. Mine are never perfect, but that's okay. It's still going to work. It's still going to fly a little bit, I guarantee. Even if yours doesn't look like mine, if you throw it, it's going to fly a little bit. Now, I can pick my design up, pinch the bottom, and it should look somewhat like a plane. Your wings might be folded down flat a little bit, right? They might not be popping up all the way. And the way that you fix that is just grabbing the sides and pulling them up. To give this plane design the most lift, you want your wings to be up a little bit. You want the back to look like a Y, not like an M, but like a Y. So you're gonna pull those wings up so that it looks more like a Y. And then what I like to do to give it a little more lift is on those two back tips, I just roll them up a little bit. I'm not folding them, I'm not making a crease, I'm just rolling them up just a little bit. That's gonna give it a little bit more lift. All right, and now your plane is ready to fly. Now when you throw it, I like to grab that tab in the middle as a good spot to throw it from. All right, so you hold it like that, you pull it way back,